Hey CEOs. All right, so it is the beginning of February, but I wanted to share with you a couple of things that I do as a CEO to run my businesses most effectively. As a childcare business owner, each and every week, actually, not every month, but every week, we make sure that we are tracking particular numbers so that we can really keep our finger on the pulse of the business. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Childcare businesses run off of enrollments. So, how do we know if we are running our business most effectively from a revenue perspective if we do not know the number of enrollments that we have? Are we on track? Are we operating at a lower enrollment number? Has our enrollment increased? The only way we know that is if we are actually tracking it. So for us, each and every week, we are looking at our enrollment as an actual number. You can take it even deeper by looking at your enrollment by age group, right? Something that I noticed not too long ago was our numbers were the same, but when we dug a little deeper, there were actual changes. And that included changes by age group, meaning preschool was still higher, but our infant and toddler adjusted a little bit. So we need to know that, because when it comes time for recruiting, I need to know what age group I'm really needing to focus on. So that's from the childcare business perspective. Here's what I want to say. As a CEO, this information applies to any industry. So in my coaching business, I'm also tracking numbers. So what are sales like? What are leads like? All of these are what we would call KPIs, key performance indicators. And so we really need to identify the important numbers in our business so that we can literally track them. And I'm going to show you in a moment. So what am I talking about when I say tracking our numbers? We can simply open up a blank sheet and just create titles or subjects of areas that we need to measure. So I'll give you an example. If we're talking about January 2025, because that just passed, we can definitely look at those numbers. And how about we look at total sales? I can get more specific. If we're talking about childcare, enrollment. What about number of tours? And if you're not in childcare, that could be number of leads, right? How many prospective people did you get in contact with? And then we would definitely want to know tours or leads converted, meaning how many of those tours turned into an actual enrollment? How many of those leads actually turned into a client? What about, here's another thing we could do, because if we're looking at enrollment for January 2025, I'm just throwing things in here. Not that this is the actual order, but what about enrollment last year, right? These are the type of things we want to know so that we are clear. Okay, if my enrollment right now is 100 and last year it was at 90, in January of 2024, then we know we had an increase. And that's telling us a story, because we can really figure out, okay, what's the difference between last year and this year? This is the thing. Numbers tell us a story. And so we want to make sure that we are tracking numbers. This topic, this conversation is a non-negotiable, right? When we don't track something, we can't improve it. And so if you're not measuring your business performance, you are flying blind, because we don't know. We don't know what is working. And that's another area. What is working? What is not? All right. And so again, this isn't in any particular order. This is really just thinking about, in my business, what numbers do I need to be tracking each month? Because guess what it tells you? It tells you where your energy needs to go. All right, here's a sneak peek at what this could literally look like. This does not have to be hard at all, but once you implement this, here's what you can track. Now, for my childcare friends, this section is for you. All right. We may track enrollment, tours, inquiries, like I mentioned, attendance rate, how much tuition did we collect? What about staff attendance? What about our social media engagement? Did we post anything? And what about any traffic that we had based on our website? Now we're going to look at these weekly, and then we're going to set target goals. The beautiful part about this is when we start tracking it, we then can focus on this last section. What's our action plan? So if our attendance went down, we need to take a look at why. If our employee turnover rate seems to be getting higher, now we need to take action. Now, for my business friends, these are all, honestly, I really like to put them in one, but I'm just going to say this just so that it can resonate with you. I want to make sure that you see yourself in that. So if you are an entrepreneur, here's some things that you may be tracking. Total monthly revenue. What about your profit margin? I mentioned the number of leads generated. We also may want to look at if you have like an email subscriber list, how many emails were opened? What were the click rates? And then what about the time that we spent on revenue generating tasks? Oh my goodness, this is so powerful. And again, we're going to say, how often are we going to measure it? What are our goals? And then, is it working? Is it not working? Here's our action plan to do something about it. I promise you, KPIs, tracking data, they tell a story. We want to make sure we implement this because, listen, we're CEOs. All right, we've given you some examples. So I want to make sure that this is resonating with you. Leave me a comment letting me know, do you track your numbers? And if not, what do you find that really becomes difficult? Like, where are you struggling? What question do you have? Talk to me. But before I wrap it up, I just want to say this, because you may be thinking, wait, why are we doing this again? That sounds like a lot. I get it. Start with one. We start with one thing and then we start to add more. Let's just start with either total sales, total revenue. How about that? And we look at that for a couple of weeks and see what it tells us. And then we add another tracker. Okay? But I do want to say this before I go. Why are we doing this? Because I don't want to spend hours each week working on something that is not growing my business. I want to be more profitable, right? That's what business is about. Not just sustainability, which we want, but we also want to be growing. So when we look at real numbers, we're not going off of feelings. We are literally looking at numbers because they tell a story. Okay? So we're going to be utilizing these numbers to know where to focus our attention, where to focus our time, where our staff need to be focused. These things can literally say, it's like an indicator, right? You know how sometimes our body, we get a headache or something like that. It literally is telling our body something. And that's what happens in our business. A lot of times there's a symptom that's happening and we have to start digging deeper. This is what data can do. It can say, oh, wait a minute. The red light is blinking. I need you to pay attention to this thing. But the only way we can figure out what our business is telling us is if we track the numbers. All right. So listen, this is not the end. I have a lot more of this for you. I gave you a little bit of an example. There is actually strategies on how to create this. So connect with me. Type below data, DATA, and I will contact you with a free gift. Talk to you soon.